There's an uncomfortable truth you need to accept if you want to become a successful digital writer. And it's this: most writers fail. And that's not just me saying that. These are some actual statistics. 90% of self-published books barely sell 100 copies across their entire lifetimes. 20% of self-published authors reportedly earn nothing, meaning they publish books and they don't make a single sale, while only 33% report to earning $500 per year. That's not per month, per year. Meanwhile, content creators and writers like Tim Ferriss, Mark Manson, Ali Abdaal, and Dan Koe have made millions each just by writing online. Why is this the case? The answer is actually pretty simple. It's because 99% of writers don't write things that people want to read. While those other names I mentioned, Mark Manson, Ali Abdaal, Dan Koe, they do. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to write things that people want to read, so you can start getting the same results that the best content creators on the planet do. But first, I need to tell you a little story. A few months ago, I was on YouTube watching some Jim Carrey videos and I stumbled across an interview. In the interview, the interviewer asked Jim Carrey what was his goal as an entertainer. And Jim's answer was to free people from concern. And as a digital writer, you need to be doing the exact same thing. How do you do this? It's actually very simple. You write things that solve people's problems, essentially freeing them from concern. Because the truth is, every single reader in the universe is extremely selfish, me included. Unless you're writing content for enlightened people, you're going to have very selfish readers. You need to cater to the selfish desires of your readers. Because understand this, your readers do not care about you. I'm sorry, okay? I know, it hurt my feelings as well when I heard it, but it's the truth. They don't care about you. Like you watching this video right now, you don't care about me. You don't know me, really. You only care if I can solve your problems because you're selfish, just as I am. That's fine. That's how it is. This means you need to write in a way that alleviates people's suffering, because that's all they really care about. They don't care about your problems, they care about their problems, and they care about being able to solve those problems. If you can do that, then bravo, you deserve all of the credit and praise that comes your way. But until you do that, people will not care about you at all. In much the same way as Jim Carrey decided to free people from concern by making them laugh, you need to be a writer that frees your readers from the problems that they're facing. This is what the best writers online fundamentally do. So, how do you do this? Well, it's easy. You identify a problem in your own life, you solve it, you document how you solved it online, and you post it. It's that simple. If people have the same problem as you, they will come, consume your content, try and apply your solution, and if it works, great. You get credited with solving their problem. For example, let's say you used to be fat. Let's say you used to weigh over 100 kilos and found a way to lose 20 kilos. You can share that process on the internet. And if there are people who are in the same position as you looking for a similar solution, they will really resonate with your content. Think about it. I'm doing the exact same thing in this video. You clicked on this because you want to learn how to write things that people will read. Because that's a problem for you. Maybe you've been writing for a little bit and you haven't gotten the results you wanted. Maybe you're thinking about writing, but you're doing some research. You want to get ahead of the curve, so to speak. Either way, you have a problem and you're hoping I can solve it. Now, why would I be qualified to solve this? Well, I have 27,000 followers on Medium. I've written over 650 articles in just over 700 days. I've actually made money writing online, which means I've figured out a way to get people to read my writing because they want to read it. And now I'm here on YouTube teaching other people who want to do the same thing. There's no reason why you can't do this too. Just identify a problem you've solved personally. It doesn't matter how small it may seem. Solve the problem and then write about it. If you share what you've written online, there's probably a very large audience of people who are in the exact same position as you and are looking for a solution to that problem. Now, this begs the question, does all writing need to solve a problem? Does J.K. Rowling solve a problem when she's writing Harry Potter books? Was Quentin Tarantino solving a problem when he wrote his movies? Were the Beatles making music just to solve a problem? No. Basically, no. The answer is no. They weren't. A lot of pragmatic business people will say, yes, they were solving a problem. People were bored, and the problem they're solving is entertainment. They're alleviating people from boredom. But that's a very simplistic way of looking at what these people have made. No one can seriously tell me that J.K. Rowling was writing Harry Potter because she wanted to solve a problem. She wasn't trying to solve a problem of boredom. That's not what she was doing. She was just in love with the story and had to write it. There's no problem solving going on there. You know, fundamentally, is all art just entertainment? Is that all it is? That's all? That's the only purpose it serves, to alleviate people from boredom? I think that's a very stupid and simplistic way of looking at art, personally. The truth is, some of the greatest pieces of writing in the history of human history... What, in the history of human history? The truth is, some of the greatest pieces of writing in the history of humanity were not written to fix anything. They were made because the writer had something important they needed to express. So now, let's discuss how you can approach writing from a more artistic perspective and still make people want to read it. Although the pragmatic right to solve problems is an effective perspective, it doesn't show the full picture. And, to be honest, it makes a fundamental mistake. What's the mistake? It's this. It turns writing into just a means to an end, as opposed to the end in itself. In my video where I talk about how to get started writing again after taking a long break, I discuss how writing isn't a means to an end. Writing is more like an infinite art form with no bounds. I'm not going to get into all that here. You can watch the video later if you want. Instead, I want to talk about how artistic pieces of writing can become adored by your audience. And to clarify, when I say artistic, I'm talking about things like novels, screenplays, songs, poems, all forms of writing where you're trying to express something or tell a story, basically. In other words, pieces of art instead of just content. So how can you get people to fall in love with your art? The answer is so simple. And it's just to love it yourself. Because let's face it, if you don't love your art, why should anyone else? Does that make sense to you? On the flip side, if you made something and you absolutely loved it, would it not make sense that there would be other people out in the world who would also love it as much as you? Imagine you've written a movie script for me, okay? You absolutely love the story. The characters feel like they're your friends. And while you were writing it, it just felt like you were playing, like it didn't feel like work at all. By the time you finish writing that script, how do you feel? Are you fantasizing about the amount of money you're going to make? Are you picturing all of the hot groupies lining up outside your dressing room when you inevitably become super famous? Or are you just super psyched, delighted with the thing you created with your mind? Which one is it? If the answer is the latter, you've probably made something very special. Here's what you have to understand about making art. If you don't love it, no one else will. Imagine if the Beatles didn't love the music they were making. Imagine if all they gave a shit about was the amount of money they're going to make and the amount of chicks they're going to bang. Literally no one would have cared about them. If that was their approach, they would have been forgotten instantly. They would have just been another flash in the pan. Why? Because the music was the thing that made them special. It wasn't all the glitz and glamour that came along with it. This would have been plain as day in the music itself. Because if the Beatles only cared about making money and banging chicks, they wouldn't have needed to evolve. They wouldn't have had to change their sound. They wouldn't have had to innovate the music they were making. They had a formula that was making them a lot of money and getting them a lot of girls. If that's all they wanted, they could have kept riding that gravy train. But The caveat is they would have just been forgotten. No, they wouldn't have been a significant band. People would just stop caring about them because they would be reflecting how the Beatles cared about their shitty music. But thankfully, this didn't happen because the Beatles really cared about the music they were making. By the time they broke up in 1969, the music they were making was completely different to the stuff they burst onto the scene with. It's like looking at two completely different bands. And they did this because they absolutely loved the journey they were on. Like, you can't make a Revolver without being deeply in love with the music. You can't evolve to start making Abbey Road if you're not just in love with the art you're creating. It doesn't happen. It's impossible. You can't keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible if you're not also completely enamored by the thing you're making. This is how you get your writing read from an artistic perspective. This is all you need to know. You need to make it for yourself. You need to be your own audience. Because if you love what you create, it's very safe to assume that other people will love it as well. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to become as big as the Beatles or as rich as J.K. Rowling. I'm not promising that at all. But that's not what you need anyway. Simply having a small and passionate audience of people who love your work just as much as you do will be enough to completely change your life. Okay, so I've covered art and I've covered social media problems. These are two completely different approaches, but doing both will dramatically advance your skills as a digital writer. The last thing I want to turn my attention to is something that lies in between both approaches. Maybe you're not interested in solving people's problems and being a niche creator on social media, and maybe you're not really interested in expressing yourself through art. Maybe you're more interested in expressing ideas or philosophizing. Well, how can you do this if most ideas are already taken? And more importantly, how can you stand out in a very crowded marketplace where a lot of people are just saying the same thing? The answer is very straightforward. You need to make old ideas feel new. I teach how to do this in my free magnetic writing guide. You can just click the first link in the description. But for now, let me just tell you about a sneaky thing a lot of marketers on social media do to try and increase their authority in the eyes of their audience. So in case you didn't know, there are a few very basic marketing concepts that people learn as soon as they start learning about marketing. Concepts like a lead magnet or a money-back guarantee. Well, in order for business people to stand out online where everyone's talking about a lead magnet or a money-back guarantee, they come up with a new name for the same concept. Why? Because it makes a very basic and well-known concept sound new, even though it isn't. More importantly, it makes the person who comes up with this concept seem a lot more authoritative because it seems as though it's their concept. It's not a concept that's really common. It's something they've come up with. So instead of it being a lead magnet, it's something like a free personal gift. Another way to make old ideas feel new is to change the way you present the idea. For example, you can talk about it from your perspective to see if it holds true for you. You can grab the attention of your readers by writing a really weird headline. In short, there are many ways to make old ideas feel new just by presenting it in a different way. Whether it be in the actual presentation of the idea, the packaging around the idea, or even the way you actually engage with the idea itself. An obvious example of this is the way Hollywood repackages old movies and makes these horrible remakes. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to give a different example. This example is a lot better. In 1976, David Bowie recorded an album called Station to Station. He can't remember making it because he was so coked out. Like, that period of his life is just a complete blur. He can't picture what happened. But he did record this album, and it's a very good album. But what's interesting about the album is that it is an example of something very old feeling new. What do I mean? I mean, Station to Station is a very American-sounding album. It's got a lot of 1970s soul sounds, as well as like 1950s rock and roll. But it has this new spin on it because David Bowie is the voice behind it, as opposed to like the more common American voices that you'd hear on that kind of style of music. By combining everything together, he created a fantastic album that sounds familiar but is also completely different. He was being original without having to reinvent the wheel. Essentially, he just took the wheels off and put them on a different car, if that makes sense. And if you look at the world of music, this happens all over the place. Just look at how DJs remix existing pop songs and create something completely new. It sounds familiar, like the skeleton of that old song is there, but it's been repackaged. It's been changed in some way so that it feels new. You can use this exact same principle and apply it to your writing. Because the truth is, this is what the best writers do anyway. They don't sit around waiting for a new idea to just smack them across the face. They already have ideas that they know and love. All they do is they take those ideas, they combine them with their own perspectives, and they create something new. This is exactly what you should do with your writing. You might not need a brand new idea. Maybe all you need is a fresh way to present it. I hope you found this very useful. Thank you very much for watching. Click the first link in the description for magnetic writing, and be sure to watch the next video where I go deeper into how to make old ideas feel new. I'll see you there. Bye.